Greetings, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're joining us from. It's wonderful you can be with us for our annual look at stewardship and sustainability. We're going to be sharing the latest research, and we've got an all-star panel joining us. So my name's Chris Adams. I look after research and insights at Miles Partnership. And let's go to the panel, the all-star panel that we've got. So a very, very familiar face, Erin Francis Cummings is joining us. I think, Erin, you're actually in Washington, joining us from the US travel event.
Yes, nice to see everyone, or not see, but be here with everyone.
And we're delighted to have two real thought leaders, inspirational figures in sustainability with destination organizations. So First of all, Lena Allen is Director of Outdoor Recreation and Sustainability at the wonderful Arizona Office of Tourism. And Ricky Home Peterson is Director of Communications with wonderful Copenhagen. And Ricky, thanks so much for joining us. I know it's the evening over there, or after 9 o'clock in Copenhagen. So thanks so much for joining us. So we're going to have a look today at sustainability and stewardship in a couple of major parts. First, we're going to share the latest research from future partners, and we've been collaborating with them for 15 plus years. We've been asking questions around stewardship for pretty much all of that time. We're going to be looking at how American travelers think about and act on sustainability and stewardship issues. Then Lena and Ricky will join us. First, we're going to hear what Copenhagen is doing with a really innovative program called CopenPay. And then in Arizona, the Responsible Traveler Education Program, AppreciateAZ. So then we'll have an opportunity to have a short panel discussion around some of the issues that destinations are facing around stewardship, and there'll be the opportunity for you to ask questions. So please put either in the chat your experiences, there might be examples that you want to share, and please ask questions of the panel. In terms of the resources from today, all of the slides, the webinar recording, and a host of other resources around stewardship and sustainability will be available online at both our sites, and we'll be sending out an email to everybody who registered 24 hours after the tomorrow. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Erin to have a look at the latest research on how American travelers are thinking about sustainability. Take it away, Erin.
Thank you, Chris. And yes, Chris, you and I have been asking questions about stewardship and sustainability in research for over 17 years. I have some historic data to share shortly on that. If you've just joined us, thank you again for being here. Once again, I'm Erin Francis Cummings. I'm the President and CEO of Future Partners, a company formerly known as Destination Analysts. And we're a market research firm serving insights that shape winning strategies for travel, tourism, and hospitality leaders that capture hearts, minds, and market share. And we unlock opportunity powered by insight, bringing the future of travel within reach for our industry. It's my great pleasure to present the 2024 Stewardship and Sustainability edition of the State of the American Traveler Study. This is our ongoing research that looks into how Americans are considering, experiencing, and consuming travel, which we have been conducting since 2006. These quarterly deep dives we do in partnership with Miles allow you to get a fuller, richer understanding of the most critical topics in travel and tourism. So let's take you into the latest findings on significant issues influencing how our travel industry partners can lead sustainability and be great stewards of their destinations towards a more sustainable future. Just a quick review of the methodology. The State of the American Traveler Study is based on a monthly tracking survey that collects a minimum of 4,000 unique completed responses from a nationally representative sample of American travelers. After the data is collected, it's weighted by geography and demographics, so it's reflective of the actual American traveling population. Today's findings reflect data collected just a few weeks ago in October and have a confidence interval of plus or minus 1.6%. All right, so here's what we will cover today. I will look at current travel sentiment, then we'll get into environmental concerns, climate change, and then we'll end with community sentiment. So before we explore the latest consumer opinions and behaviors impacting stewardship and sustainability, it's really important for us to take that macro view, give you the context to the greater reality that traveling consumers are in. So I will share a brief top-level look at some of the latest trends in American travel sentiment and behaviors and what that might mean for you, not just in the months ahead, but as you consider the other information about sustainability and stewardship. First, financial sentiment. This chart shows the percent of Americans who say that their household is better or much better off financially compared to a year ago. Currently, 1 in 3 American travelers say their financial wellness has improved over the last year. Compared to previous points in time, Americans' financial wellness is now 6 points above 22 levels, but 2 points below where we were in 2023. And how are Americans feeling about spending on travel? Well, their willingness to do so has remained steady throughout 2024. And looking at this metric in a historical context, Americans feeling that now is a good time to spend on travel has improved vastly compared to 2022, and it is comparable to the same time in 2023. In other good news, their willingness to spend on travel is also paired with high excitement levels about travel in the coming year. This chart shows Americans' average rating when asked how excited they are about travel in the next 12 months on a 0 to 10 scale. There's been a sustained high level of excitement throughout 2024, which is well above 2022 levels, where the average excitement rating sat at 7.7 versus 8.2 this year. In addition, most American travelers are staying committed to making leisure travel spend a priority in their budgets in the near term. Following the trend of our other financial sentiment metrics, this has improved relative to the last 2 years. Travel budgets have also grown significantly in the last year. In fact, the typical American traveler now expects to spend $5,700 on leisure trips in the next 12 months. This is $1,400 more than the 33-month average for this metric. And we've been asked if this is due to rising costs for travel, and certainly that's a factor. However, when we look at trip volume expectations over the last year, we also see a notable rise in the number of anticipated trips reported in the latter half of 2024, increasing from 3.3 in May to 3.7 as of last month. So it appears that rising travel budgets are also due in part to Americans planning on taking more trips. Additionally, in looking at recent past travel behaviors, those taking overnight trips in the last month has increased post-summer season. Volume for 100% leisure, as well as visiting in friends and relatives trips, was highest amongst, those trip types were the highest among the ones that we test. But that said, volume for business purposes or to attend a conference, those have also increased in the last couple months. And in addition to a strong personal financial outlook, while cost and finances remain the top travel deterrents, travel costs and gas prices as travel deterrents are at 2-year lows. And when asked to think about their travel over the next year and what they will prioritize, Americans will be most seeking spending time with loved ones, new places, enjoying nature, and energy and excitement in their travel experiences in the next year. And here are the destinations that they are most aspiring to visit domestically to capitalize on those experiential motivations. New York, Florida, Las Vegas, California, and Hawaii take the top spots. But as you study this list, you'll see that there are a variety of destination brands on here, from the outdoor to food to cultural. And when it comes to Americans heading abroad for their leisure, their expectations to travel internationally in the next 12 months are on the rise, with nearly 41% saying it's likely they will take an international trip in the near future. And this is up 4 points from the same time last year. And they're quite likely to make good on this. When we look at actual international trip behavior, 33.8% of Americans have taken an international trip in the past 12 months. And we always see that expectations and behavior in this metric do go hand in hand. And really importantly, for the context of what we're talking about today, here are the top international destinations Americans say they aspire to visit in the next year, written in an unaided format. And European destinations clearly dominate, and these destinations can have a different cultural perspective on tourism and the environment. So in summary, financial sentiment and the travel outlook remain steady and strong for the months ahead, and Americans are demonstrating a strong willingness to pay for travel. And as they increasingly head abroad for trips, they may need to consider an expanded view of a relationship to the environment. All right, so let's jump in now onto what we found about environmental concerns. And before I share the latest data on this, I do want to take you back to January of this year, when we asked American travelers about their predictions for travel in the coming year. And some of those that we tested in January were related to the environment. So let me just share those with you now. We asked back in January for them to rate their agreement with this statement: I'll be more proactive in reducing the impact of my travel on the environment. At that time, 43% said that they predicted this, and 18% said that that was unlikely. We also asked with higher temperatures each year, whether travelers would try to seek out cooler places to visit. 59% said that was likely or certain to happen. Well, just 14% said that that was unlikely. All right, so let's fast forward to now, the data we just collected a few weeks ago. More than 1 in 5 American travelers, 21%, now feels that travel has an overall negative impact on the environment. 63% say no, it does not, and 16% are unsure. The number of Americans feeling this way continues to be down relative to 2021 and 2022. Sorry, the Zoom notification came up. This sentiment is also elevated from 2019, when just 17% said travel has an overall negative impact on the environment. We presented the statement: I usually make a conscious effort to reduce the environmental impact of my travel, and asked American travelers to rate their level of agreement with it. In total, 45% of American travelers agree they usually make a conscious effort to reduce the environmental impact of their travel. And as you see in the chart on the right of your screen, Gen Z is much more likely, and nearly 6 in 10 saying this. Also, while it's not shown in this chart, just so you know, men are more polarized on this issue compared to women, where they have fairly even splits on their agreement. We asked, when traveling, what aspects of your environmental and community impact do you typically think about? We found this year that most Americans, 71%, still consider the environmental and community impacts their travel has. In terms of the specific aspects they think about, as in last year, plastic waste they create is at the top at 35%. Crowding and congestion in the communities they visit, and increased traffic or parking issues in destinations where they drive, that comes in second and third. More than 1 in 5 cite impacts on natural ecosystems, including wildlife, water consumption, and energy consumption, especially from fossil fuels. 19% report they typically think about carbon emissions from their travel contributing to global warming. Here are some of these concerns broken out by generation. As you can see, boomers are actually most conscientious about plastic waste. Our Gen Z and millennials are generally more sensitive to increasing costs for the residents in the communities they visit by touristing it. And millennial generation travelers are specifically more concerned about changing the character of the neighborhoods that they visit. Our survey respondents were presented this information. A carbon offset in travel is a payment made to offset or compensate for the emissions of greenhouse gases created by your trip, for example, from your air travel. Carbon offsets might restore forests or wetlands or expand renewable energy. The response to this question shows that Americans purchasing carbon offsets for their travel has declined somewhat at 8%, down from 10% last year. And this is particularly so amongst our millennial age travelers, 16% of whom report purchasing a carbon offset for travel, and that's down from 21% last year. Although Gen Z is up 2 points there at 15%, reporting having purchased a carbon offset. Survey respondents were presented this information. Many hotels now have green programs and certifications that show their commitment to reducing their environmental impact. For example, recycling, water conservation, energy efficiency, use of renewable energy, etc. They were then asked, when traveling, do you make it a priority to stay in hotels that have green programs and certifications? You see that Americans, well, just under 3 in 10 of them prioritize staying in hotels with green initiatives. That is down 4 points from last year. Again, it's particularly true of millennial and Gen Z age travelers and less likely amongst our boomer age travelers in their hotel selection. We also asked in the past 12 months, have you knowingly paid more than you otherwise would have to stay at a hotel that has a strong green program or certification? We found that in the last year, 14% of American travelers knowingly paid more to stay in hotels with strong green programs and certification. Again, this behavior is more common amongst our younger travelers. 23% of millennials report having done so, and 22% of Gen Z travelers did. Who else has paid more for hotels with strong green programs and certifications? We see that 25% of business travelers and 25% of parents with school-age children report that they have. And then also, it's interesting that about half acted on their intention. Last year, we asked this question a little bit differently about whether they were willing to pay. And at that time, 52% of business travelers said they were, and 49% of travelers said that they were. So again, we see that about half made good on that promise in this last year. And then also looking by geography, that's a chart on the right of your screen. Those in the West, who reside in the West, are likeliest to have paid more for green hotels, followed by those in the Northeast. To learn more about how green initiatives impact actual lodging choice and selection, this year we asked, while traveling in the past 12 months, has a specific hotel's green program initiatives caused you to book that hotel other lodging options? 14% said yes. And as you can see on the chart on the right, Gen Z travelers are twice as likely to have done this. We presented the statement, I believe that people generally should not travel long distances via air as it's bad for the environment, and asked American travelers to rate their level of agreement with it. The belief that people should refrain from traveling long distances via air remains limited. Only 13% agree or strongly agree with this. That's down 1 point from 2023. However, do note that a notable 36% of Gen Z travelers say this, and that is up 10 points from last year. About 1 in 5 millennial age travelers say this as well. Looking at this sentiment in a historical context, the notion that people should refrain from traveling long distances via air peaked amongst American travelers in 2019 at 16%. In another way to understand the degree to which Americans associate travel and travel behaviors with the environment, we presented the statement, travel and the environment have nothing to do with one another, and asked Americans to rate their level of agreement with that. While 20% agree or strongly agree that travel and the environment have nothing to do with one another, 45% of American travelers disagree, essentially saying that they recognize that travel and the environment do relate to each other. And as you can see on the chart on the right, the biggest demographic divide is between women and men identifying travelers. 50% of women disagree that travel and the environment have nothing to do with one another, and that's 11 points higher compared to men. So in summary, Americans consider the environment when traveling and demonstrate a sense that travel impacts the environment. However, much more needs to be done to motivate travelers to act and pay more for travel products with strong green initiatives. The next sustainability and stewardship related topic that we will cover today is American travelers' perspectives on climate change. Americans were asked whether they believe that human activity is responsible for climate change. Currently, 60% of American travelers believe that human activity is responsible for climate change. 23% say no, 17% are unsure. In 2024, people shifted from yes to I don't know by 2 points. And if we look back over the last several years, the belief that human activity is responsible for climate change has fluctuated somewhat year to year, with 2022 representing a high. 2024, unfortunately, represents a 5-year low in the belief in human-driven climate change. And if we look more deeply at who is in the yes category, as you can see on the chart on the left, we find that those in higher income households are likelier to agree that human activity is responsible for climate change, although that did decline somewhat in 2024. And as you see on the chart on the right, those in urban and suburban communities are likelier to believe in human-driven climate change. Less than half of rural residents share that belief. Just take a real quick moment, as Chris had reminded me how long we've been tracking these types of questions. So looking back over 17 years ago, at that time, again, it's a different question, but half of American travelers said they were at least somewhat concerned about the personal impact of their leisure travel back in 2007. The other 48% were not concerned. Okay, let's go to this year. We asked travelers to think about the past 2 years and rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how much they think climate change has already impacted their leisure travel. In past iterations of this research, we asked about past 5 rather than 2 years. So the bars in this chart represent the percent rating a significant level of impact, so that would be 8 or higher, and the mean impact on that 10-point scale. So in 2023, 15% of American travelers said climate change had impacted their travel in the previous 5 years, and that was a 2-point increase from 2022. So in 2024, 1 in 10 American travelers have had climate change significantly impact their leisure travel in the last 2 years. And the mean impact they report on that 10-point scale is 3.8. We also continue to ask them to consider the next 5 years and what travelers expect in terms of how much climate change will impact their travel. And again, the bars represent the percent rating a significant level of impact, and the mean impact on that 10-point scale is shown. And we see that in 2024, Americans are less anticipatory about climate change disrupting their travel in the future, with 13% anticipating a high level of impact, and that's down 7 points in the last year. And the mean level of impact has also dropped to a 3-year low at 4.2. Well, we ask American travelers more specifically about the ways they anticipate concern about climate change will impact their travel in the next 5 years. In 2024, fewer, but still a majority of American travelers still anticipate climate change will cause them to adjust some of their travel habits at 53%. That is down 6 points since last year. The top anticipated travel behavioral adjustment is changing the costs associated with travel to do things like pay for carbon offsets, change how one travels, such as taking more public transit. That's up 2 points in the last year. And the top 2 from previous years, traveling more to destinations that are closer to home and traveling less overall. Those were top 2 last year. They're now in 3rd and 4th. 13% say they will stay longer in distant destinations. 12% say they will stay home and explore more of their own destination. And 13% say they will travel less often to distant destinations on long flights. Again, how that's changed over time. In 2007, here are the actions American travelers said they were going to specifically do to reduce their personal impact. Few did so back then, just 8%, saying they would reduce the number of trips they would take. And very few, about 1%, said that they had purchased carbon offsets. So definitely made some inroads in a couple of those areas. All right, looking more deeply at who is most anticipatory of climate change inspired behavioral changes to their travel. As you can see in these charts, younger, urban, and less affluent travelers are more anticipatory of changing their travel behaviors due to climate change. And on climate change issues, we asked, in the past 12 months, have you personally experienced a natural disaster that impacted your leisure travel? 16% say yes, that did happen to them. And when we ask which natural disasters impacted their travel, hurricanes lead those that have disrupted travel in the last year. So in summary, Americans' concerns about climate change disruption to their travel has lessened in the last year, despite the number of travelers who've had their travel disrupted by natural disasters in the last 12 months alone. And finally, let's look at community sentiment, how Americans feel about tourism's impact on the environment in which they live and the decisions they have made and their overall quality of life. This year, we asked survey respondents how long ago they moved to the community in which they live. While 13% are lifelong residents of their communities, 42.4% have been residents of their community for less than 10 years. And as you might expect, as you can see on the chart on the right, younger generations are more mobile and likelier to have lived in their community for less time. Along this vein, 40% of American travelers live where they do because they were once visitors themselves. Looking at some demographic breakouts, as you see on the right, interestingly, men are far more likely to say this, and also income drives whether you say you were once a tourist and that's why you live where you live now. Looking in more detail at why people choose to live where they do, we asked the reasons that describe why they originally moved to their local community. Family, friends, jobs, and cost of living are the primary drivers of residency choice, followed by pace of life and climate. The overall number of reasons decline by age, so if you're a boomer, you're less likely to select any of these reasons. There's also notable differences by geography. In the West, residents are more likely to have been motivated to live where they live by climate, nature, and outdoor recreational opportunities. In the Northeast, it's education. In the South, it's cost of living. For our affluent households with incomes above 200K, it's education, climate, and outdoor activities. Men care more about the climate of where they live than women, interestingly. For those living in rural areas, it's the landscape. And for parents, no surprise, education. So to gauge how their general feeling about where they live, we asked, all things considered, how satisfied are you with the direction your local community is headed? 52% of American travelers say they are satisfied to some degree with how their community is headed. The charts on the right show you how satisfaction differs by demographics. Men tend to be more satisfied with their community's direction, as are those in affluent households. Urban residents' satisfaction with their community direction is 18 points higher compared to those that live in small towns. As we have for the last 4 years, we asked agreement with the statement, I live in a community that is a popular tourism destination. Those who consider their home community to be a popular tourism destination has been declining. It's now at 41%. That's down 2 points from 2023 and down 6 points since 2021. Looking regionally, residents of the American West and South are likeliest to say they live in popular tourism destinations. 50% of those residing in the West say that. That is down 4 points, however. 44% of those in the South, that's down 3 points. 39% of those in the Northeast feel that way, and just 26% of those in the Midwest say that. So let's look at the concept of over-tourism. We asked the agreement with the statement, I live in a place that has an issue with over-tourism. And after a peak of 28% in 2021, less than 1 in 5 American travelers now feel they live in a place with an over-tourism issue. And looking deeper into this, agreement that their community has an issue with over-tourism is strongest amongst urban residents. In fact, this grew 5 points in the last year. And that's as cities have roared back in popularity since the pandemic days. And the inverse of last year, it declined the most amongst rural residents. A quick diversion from community sentiment, but while we're on the topic of over-tourism, this year's research found that while over-tourism will still deter a significant proportion of American travelers from visiting a destination, this sentiment has in fact declined. It's now at 49%, down 3% in the last year. Back to community sentiment, the belief that tourism improves communities is held by 42% of American travelers. And while that represents a 4-point decrease from 2023, when the sentiment peaked, it is still elevated over 2021 and 2022. Looking more closely at the belief that tourism makes a community a better place to live, while those in the West and Northeast have the strongest agreement that tourism improves communities, 40% of residents of the South and a third of Midwest residents also share this sentiment. The overall decline in this sentiment, however, was the most dramatic amongst residents of the South. They're down 7 points since 2023. Those in higher income households also continue to be likely to agree that about tourism's positive impact on communities, but do note there's been a 12-point decline in this sentiment amongst our highest income households. In 2024, fewer Americans consider the tourism industry to be important to the vitality of their community relative to the last 4 years. When asked their opinion on how important the tourism industry is to the economic vitality of the community in which they live, 48% of American travelers said it was important or very important, and that's down 7 points from 2023 and a 4-year low. Again, looking more specifically at this sentiment, it's greatest in the West and the South. And as was done in the past, survey respondents were asked to think about their community's tourism industry and its impact on their community, and then rate how much they agree with several statements. So I'll walk you through the level of agreement with each of these statements now. Tourism helps to support businesses. 62% of American travelers agree. Unfortunately, that's down 6 points from 2023, but only 11% disagree. Visitor spending generates funding for community services. A majority, 55%, agree, down 4 points since 2023, but just 13% disagree. Tourism supports events in my local area that I enjoy as a resident. Half agree. That is down 5 points, but only 14% disagree. Tourists are respectful of my local community. 45% agree. That's the same as 2023. Tourists bring crowds, congestion, and traffic to my community. This is the first of the negative-leaning tourism sentiment statements that we tested. 38% agree with that sentiment, so it is down 2 points compared to last year. 27% disagree with this, and that is down 1 point in the last year. Another negative statement, tourism negatively impacts our community's natural areas. 40% disagree, that's down 7 points in the last year. 24% do agree with that, and that's similar to last year. Tourists make my community less safe. 46% disagree, that's down 3 points from 2023. 21% agree with that, and that's actually up 1 point. There are too many tourists in my local community. 52% disagree with that sentiment, and that's down 2 points in the last year. Just 17% agree there are too many tourists, and that's down 2 points, so shift to the neutral there. I'm worried about the impact tourism has on our community culture. 49% disagree with this, down 3 points, although just 18% agree, and that's the same as last year. So this chart considered all those statements together. Even with the shifts in the past year, we see the most agreement is with those expressing positive sentiment towards tourism, especially as an economic generator and supporter, with the negative leaning ones at the bottom, all below 25%, save for that tourists bring crowds, congestion, and traffic. So in summary, the belief that human activity is responsible for climate change, it's at a 5-year low, but the majority of American travelers still anticipate climate change will impact their behaviors. In fact, 10% say climate change has already significantly impacted their travel in the last 2 years. 16% say natural disaster has impacted their travel recently. Most American travelers consider the environment and community impact their travel has. In terms of actions, 14% of American travelers knowingly paid more to stay in hotels with strong green certification. And Americans continue to feel the benefits of tourism outweigh the issues. They're particularly in tune with tourism's economic support of local businesses and services. And their greatest concerns around tourism in their local communities tend to center around crowding and disruption to natural habitats. So that is the research for today. Thank you so much. And I will pass it off to Chris now.
Thanks so much, Erin. Just one quick question before we move on to connect with our panelists. Jeff is asking, he's heard anecdotally that Europeans have stronger feelings about some of these issues. For example, spending more to make sustainable choices. I know you do research internationally, particularly for international travelers coming to the US. What are you seeing in terms of the research around international travelers' concerns about these issues?
Yes, and as we've been pointing that out in our international research, certainly we see a greater concern about, or at least consideration of the environment in those markets. And that's why I wanted to highlight how many Americans say they want to head to Europe, because it is a different mindset there, and they approach the relationship with travel and the environment. So thank you for bringing that up. And yes, we do see that in our data in global markets as well.
That's right, and we'll hear about that in a moment with Ricky. But before I invite the panelists back in, I just want to spend 1 minute introducing Wayfinder. It's a platform we've been putting a huge amount of effort into over the last 12 to 18 months. It's a destination management framework and platform for managing against your sustainability and stewardship goals. It's built on a tried and tested software as a service, or SaaS solution, and it's about continuous improvement against those goals, whether they be resident sentiment, whether they be environmental issues. It focuses very much on outcomes, and we developed it in collaboration with destinations all over the world, destination leaders and sustainability experts. It looks at all your stakeholder groups, and it starts with a self-assessment process, seeing where you are on your sustainability journey. It uses a framework built on the GSTC standards, including the 4 criteria of sustainability that GSTC has demonstrated. And then it's got a really robust range of task management, but set up tasks, assign tasks, track progress, and more. It's got a full library of resources you can tap into. So if you're interested in finding out more about Wayfinder, I know Kristen and Abby would be delighted to hear from you, to ask questions, set up a demo. It's really a comprehensive platform for managing the very complex but important areas of stewardship and sustainability in the travel industry and destinations. So without further ado, let's bring in our panel. And again, many thanks to Ricky for joining us in what is in the evening in Copenhagen. I'm surprised Denmark wasn't on that list of preferred destinations, because Copenhagen and Denmark, one of the truly unique places in the world. I've been there many times, so a thorough recommendation to visit there. So I'll invite Lena in after you've presented, Ricky, but why don't you share with us the program that you've been running in Copenhagen that's got so much attention, CopenPay. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm sharing my screen now. I hope I am. Yes, I am now. Thank you so much for the invite. It's amazing to be in your webinar and talk about what we did this summer. So I'll talk to you about CopenPay, what it was all about. And in very short, CopenPay was an initiative we launched this summer. It was a pilot project running for 4 weeks, where visitors and locals could get Copenhagen attractions for climate-friendly actions. So very briefly. And now I tell you a little bit about why did we do it? How did we come up with CopenPay? What was the concept about? And I'll also show the results. And first of all, why are we doing, or why did we do it? Tourism is an industry that affects people and the planet, both in extremely good ways, but also in bad ways. And if we look at it today, we are part of the climate problem, but we also believe and work towards being an essential part of the solution in the future. And tourism is an extremely powerful resource and asset that has the potential to change the world for the better. So just like Erin said, or talked about Europeans, that we are more pro-sustainable. Imagine Americans going to Copenhagen, for instance, and being part of this program or try it out. Perhaps they would take the good habits with them home. Anyhow, based on that, our vision in Copenhagen is that tourism should make the world a better destination. One of the goals we have in our new strategy is that tourism in Copenhagen should accelerate the green transition, both locally and globally. And one of the sub-goals we have is to inspire guests to make more notable and lasting sustainable choices. And when we look at the figures, it's not fun to look at the figures actually, because tourism accounts for nearly 8% of global CO2 emissions. Yes, you heard right, 8%, that's a lot. And with the number of international arrivals predicted to reach 1.8 billion by 2030, action is more important than ever. And we want tourism to be a force for positive change, not an environmental burden. And we also want to create enriching encounters between locals and visitors. And these goals are extremely crucial for the tourism industry. We need to address these urgent matters related to climate change and over-tourism. One of the surveys we came across when we did the initiative was a Kantar survey that showed that 4 out of 5, they say they want to act sustainable, which is extremely good. But the sad part of it is that only one changed behavior. So we have a quite big gap. And one of the things we wanted with CopenPay was to bridge the gap, reduce the gap, and act more sustainably, not only saying it. So one of the goals was to inspire to a greener mindset and behavior among travelers with CopenPay. And the other one was, of course, also to raise awareness of Copenhagen as a sustainable destination. Imagine if some of the sustainable solutions we have could be an inspiration for other destinations as well, or other countries or places. So these were the 2 goals. And then very short, the concept, because it was kind of simple. So what we did was actually we turned sustainability into a currency called CopenPay. And to the left, you will see the sustainable actions we invited people to take part in. So that could be traveling, it could be working in an urban garden, it could be recycling or litter picking. And on the other hand, when you did a sustainable action, you were being rewarded with some Copenhagen attractions. So that could be a free kayak tour, it could be a free vegetarian lunch or drink, it could be extra ski time or some guided tour. So different things you got. And then I'll show the results, and we've made a movie. So if you will play that for me, that would be amazing. Then I will stop sharing my screen with you.
Tourism should make the world a better destination. And we want to inspire.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ricky, but I think the audio isn't playing. So if you want to perhaps narrate it, Ricky,
should I?
Seeing on screen.
Do you want me to share it or play it, or should?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't you?
I share my screen again.
Yeah.
And then I'll take it from there. Yeah, that's fine. I'll go back again. Just a second. Yes, let's see if it works. Otherwise, you tell me.
Tourism should make the world a better destination. And we want to inspire to a greener mindset and behavior amongst travelers. But while 82% of tourists want to act more sustainably, only 22% have changed behavior. To bridge the gap, we turn sustainability into a currency. CopenPay. Copenhagen attractions reward climate-friendly actions. For instance, sustainable actions can unlock a rental bike. A bike ride can pay for ski time. Urban gardening for a free vegetarian lunch. Or collect trash to get the kayak tour for free. 26 attractions made CopenPay a citywide scheme based on trust and voluntourism.
Well, if you're heading to Denmark's capital, Copenhagen, These are some of the activities on offer,
but only if they take part in an environmentally friendly task.
CopenPay a new scheme known as CopenPay. 4,859 news stories. A trust-based system.
pick up trash, get a free drink.
Encontrarse con un peculiar sistema que premia el turismo responsable. So many people talk about Copenhagen now. 111 million in earned media. CopenPay
will offset some of the pollution caused by tourism.
CopenPay became the biggest tourism news story in the world.
Copenhagen's carrot rather than stick approach stands in stark contrast to other European cities fed up with mass tourism, which have brought in
76,000 users visited CopenPay through our website.
We made the choice, like today, we rode bikes instead of renting a car. The reason I relied on CopenPay so much was because of the environmental angle and the fact that it encouraged me to make good choices and gave me the option to easily make good choices consistently. But I think people in general definitely get another perspective on how to maybe get to work by bike instead of car or by a train or something. So I think it opens their eyes, definitely.
Mit den Handschuhen, finde ich, geht's eigentlich.
Picking up rubbish, it's actually kind of a fun, it's like an adventure. It's like, oh look, I found some more, and it was a fun thing to do.
Rewarding their green deeds, such as getting around by foot or by bike.
The attractions gained more visitors. All interviewed tourists felt great about doing good, and 98% would recommend CopenPay to others.
It's like tiny steps will like do a lot if all of us just like do a little bit.
Okay, thanks so much. And Ricky, obviously, tremendous media exposure, and I know you've got some future plans, but let's come back to that. I'll just welcome in Lena, and then I'll invite Lena and Ricky to comment on their future plans for their programs in the next year. So thanks again, Ricky, for sharing CopenPay. Lena, do you want to share what Arizona's been doing to educate travelers and recreational users to travel more thoughtfully?
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. And also, that program is phenomenal. Like, CopenPay is just amazing. Okay, there we go. I think it's interesting too. I tend to be a data nerd, and I love when we set the stage with data. And I think it really highlights how much progress we've had, but how much more work we need to do as stewards of tourism, because tourism being better than the negative impacts of tourism is wonderful. So going forward, as earlier mentioned, I'm Lena Allen. So I am with the Arizona Office of Tourism. I'm the Director of Outdoor Recreation and Sustainability. In other words, that means I get to fulfill my passion and expertise in really adapting global efforts at the local level. I love the saying, think global, act local. One of the things that I always think is very important, the delay on the slides is really, okay. Hopefully I didn't go too far. Sorry about that. Gotta love when technology is difficult. So one of the things I always like to do is really set the foundation of how we define sustainability in all of our efforts within Arizona. I think one of the biggest issues globally as an industry for tourism is the onslaught of terminology. So we utilize the United Nations World Tourism Organization's definition, which is tourism that considers its current and future economic, social, and environmental impacts. It aims to address the needs of visitors, the industry, the environment, and host communities. So you can see how we took that global definition and adapted it at the local level here in Arizona. The other thing, of course, my dog decides to bark for the first time. Hopefully that's not coming across. I kind of love how no matter how much you try to prepare. But one of the things I always find too is that defining words with words just sometimes gets a little lost in translation. So we also use this graphic on the screen. And it's really taking the efforts in that socioeconomic, cultural, and environmental, mitigating the negative impacts as much as possible, while also harnessing the positive impacts and kind of going into that beautiful central area where really tourism is regenerating and providing positive feedback and helping to maintain and hopefully even grow the assets. I think like CopenPay is a great example of how you can really do something positive to make that messaging come across. So our efforts are broke into 4 different pillars that you will see on the screen here. It's just the way that we work. It's the way that we approach sustainability. It's how we do all the things that we do. So with that foundation set, let's dive into the practical applications, because that's really why we're here, and that's what's most important. And it's one of the biggest things is our AppreciateAZ responsible messaging program. This partnership actually started in 2020 with Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics. We really had good timing right when the pandemic hit, and there were lots of new to nature people outside exploring, and we could lean into that science-based responsible messaging that could actually encourage responsible change behavior. One of the things we actually did with that is the beautiful graphics you see on the screen. These are actually posters that we have now been able to distribute among partners across the state. In addition to, I've had requests nationally and actually internationally of just a way to kind of catch an eye and help bring people in that funnel of marketing, of education. And of course, this was just among many other media efforts like social media, things like that, and paid media. At this point, we're also looking to expand with Tread Lightly, who is also an organization found around the same time as Leave No Trace, but specifically for motorized messaging. And one of the things we'd like to do is lean into the why. Why should tourists care? And especially in our messaging, we want that messaging to be not just for tourists, but we want to actually engage with stakeholders. And so here you kind of see us on the screen, some of the various stakeholders around the state that we've identified and worked with in all of our destination development and stewardship efforts. In some good examples at like the state agency level is our Department of Environmental Quality. I actually went on a cleanup that they hosted this last weekend, and it was phenomenal. And it was amazing to see how they're giving back to help protect the watersheds in parts of the area. Our state parks and trails, they're actually the ones who approached us about expanding Tread Lightly. Game and fish, transportation, the list could go on. We also collaborate with multiple Arizona organizations like the Local First Arizona, who's doing great work here on the ground to make sure that people are shopping local and supporting local businesses. The Arizona Sustainability Alliance, who's doing phenomenal work right now in the Maricopa County area to help bring shade and trees to all areas of the county. Natural Restorations, who's doing a great job of cleaning up. The thing is, when it's coming to tourism and sustainability, I feel like there's so many people already out there doing the work. We really wanted to look into how we could connect and how we could do that. One of the things we wanted to realize too and recognize was that visitor use management, or otherwise known as the 3 E's, which is engineering, education, and enforcement, that those have to go hand in hand to really change behavior and how people move around and act. And with all 3 of those, we can't do all 3. It's not our place to do all 3. So we really work hard to connect with stakeholders to develop all 3 of those. And then kind of lean into letting each other agencies take care of the other parts. Okay. But I think what was most important and most successful with our AppreciateAZ campaign to date is the stakeholder engagement. Yes, the actual collateral and material that we were able to put out to visitors, to industry leaders, to all of the above. But it was also the ability to interweave that messaging in everything that we do. Some examples of some of the different messaging, of course, that we did in-house and our efforts, you can see on the screen there. But it's all communication. But beyond that too, it's the KPIs that we track. It's the SMART goals that our organization actually seeks to bring to fruition. And that's where I think I'm kind of a little bit giddy to be an early adopter of Wayfinder. But it's really critical that we start changing, especially when it comes to destination stewardship, the KPIs and the data that we're tracking. If we're not changing that and we're not getting those metrics, we're not going to actually develop goals that we can obtain. That's why they're called SMART goals. They have to be measurable. And then most recently, we had the wonderful honor of helping to discover and identify the brand of Arizona. And I know time's limited, so there's that QR code on the screen. It will link to a wonderful video that came together as the development and discovery of our new brand, Vibrant Arizona. But sustainability, that positive change behavior messaging was completely interwoven into that. And of course, that's very quick because, you know, time's limited. So my information's on the screen. So feel free to reach out. I'll turn it back over to Chris. But if you want to reach out, I love to talk about sustainability. So
sure. Thanks so much, Lena. I will be sharing that video along with the slide decks from both Lena and Ricky and the video examples that they've cited out in an email. We've just got a few minutes left, so I just wanted to highlight that the whole area of responsible traveler education, it's the 80-year anniversary this year of Smokey the Bear, one of the very first sort of visitor education and outdoor recreation user education programs, and Miles, along with our partners at Purdue University's Responsible Travel Lab, have developed Travel with Care, and that's a not-for-profit initiative to share knowledge across. We've got dozens of case study examples of responsible traveler education and marketing programs from around the world. There's case studies on both the Arizona example and CopenPay up there, along with many other resources about what appears to work, what appears to make impact, and what doesn't. So let's just go back to Lena and Ricky. Do you want to share very quickly, perhaps in 60 seconds or less, what your plan is for the next year and how you want to evolve the program? So, Ricky, what's the future for CopenPay?
Yeah, so the future for CopenPay is that we will do it next year. One thing. We will extend this year. We had 26 partners, but actually many more wanted to join, but we sort of stopped it because we were too far into the program. But next year, double up, so 50 partners. Many wants to join, which is so good. And then the impact part. This year, CopenPay was about when you were at the destination. Next year, it will be involving transportation to the destination as well. We're hoping for train. So if you come by train, that would be hard from the US, but in Europe, if you come by train, then you will be rewarded even more. So these are some of the examples, very short, and then from 4 weeks to 8 weeks.
Very good. Yeah. Critical issue about scaling this so it makes, you reach more visitors and influence more people to change their behavior. Lena, what's the plans in Arizona additional to what you've already shared?
Yeah, of course. I think, again, we're just kind of leaning into that why, but really to hone in on making quality trips. And I will emphasize trips. I'm a strong believer that it should be, that we should judge a trip itself, not the person, because I think we're all guilty of taking probably less sustainable options. And so how can we actually work on refining and enhancing our product here in Arizona that encourages people to take those trips and then working with stakeholders, because a rising tide does raise all boats.
Yeah, critical issue, certainly in all these areas of sustainability, creating and then enhancing relationships with your government and other agency partners so that this sort of action could be meaningful and make a significant difference. Okay, so we've run out of time. Thank you so much again, Ricky, Lena, Aaron. We'll be sharing out all the resources from today. Talking about climate action, there's a guide to action on climate change that we produce annually with the Travel Foundation and other partners. Again, completely free resource. We've got examples, including CopenPay and many others from around the world. So please take advantage of this. I've just actually written an article about, even if you don't call it climate change, there's lots of other great reasons that are good for business, good for the community to take action on climate change. And I've got examples that fill that, whether it's public transport, addressing plastic, single-use plastic, and so on. So thanks again to everybody. We look forward to a great year ahead in terms of our quarterly webinars with future partners. We'll be publishing those dates very shortly, kicking off with the Q1 Destination Decisions Edition, how and why American travelers decide where to go. So have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to connecting with you soon. Goodbye.